about the questions about chat.
Okay, now we're up
On
to
this
24 on the live
Hang on, I'm going.
stream. So we got more people online than we do in the sanctuary. But we got 24.
So am I starting now?
I was going to start, but you.
Okay. Are you ready? Yeah. Come on. All right, Brian, you ready? All right, Michelle's going to start us with go ahead and start the stream.
Well, welcome everybody. The live stream folks, we are glad to have you with us tonight, and those who are here in the sanctuary. We appreciate you being here for our two-part meeting. First part will be a church conference, which Pastor D will facilitate. We'll look at making some proposed tweaks to the guiding principles. And then the second part of our meeting will be a town hall where we'll hear from 5 of our leaders. We got a jam-packed schedule, so we will just dive right in. Pastor D, can you pray us in and lead the church conference?
All right, good to see everybody here tonight, and also you who on live stream. Thank you for being here. Let's go ahead and pray, and I'll do some guidelines about how we're going to do this meeting. Now, Lord, we ask you to be with us. You're always here, but your grace, pour it out upon us, Lord, as we make decisions on behalf of the Board of Stewards and on behalf of the church, all things will come together for your good. Lead us and guide us as we discuss the other matters of the church. As we look at the property, as we look at other things that are going to be happening around here, it all comes together, and you make it come together in a good way. So now bless all the members and bless all the visitors. Bless all who come to know you in this place. Amen. All right, so we do have a church conference tonight, and at a church conference, everyone who's a member of the church gets to vote. We do this by permission of our district superintendent. He wrote a letter which gave me permission to lead the church conference meeting. And we're going to talk about specific items that were lined out to him that Ken Beasley, our lay leader, did in that letter. In a few minutes, I'm going to call Ken up. He's going to outline to you what those items are. They have to do with the guiding principles that guides the Board of Stewards. And their goal is to make it so that you have more of a say in those guiding principles. It's an effort to be transparent, and also so that you have a way to have some say in how the Board of Stewards run. So tonight, we're going to be voting here in the House. There's also a way to vote online. Christy, can you explain this to them, how that works? Christy's going to explain to you how voting online works.
Okay, so in the chat of the YouTube live stream, what I've done is put a link where you can either click the link. It may not click live, so you may have to copy paste into your browser at the top of your screen. So if you'll click that link, and it'll just ask you a couple questions. It'll ask you if you approve or you don't approve, and it will also ask for your name. But that's it. Easy peasy lemon squeezy.
Thank you. So in a few minutes, Kim will come up and he will give you the explanation for all the changes and take questions at that time. And then when Ken has finished, we will then take a vote on all of those at one time. So are there any questions right now? Any questions coming in from the chat? Is somebody watching the chat? Any questions from the chat? Okay. So once we start the voting process, I'm going to give about 5 minutes for everybody in the chat to make their vote. Yes, Janice? Oh, now they have to sign in to their account on Google for the YouTube to see the chat and participate in it. You don't? Okay. You can't put comments, but they can see the chat. Okay, well, Chris is going to be working on the link. Now, it's very important that once you see the link, click on it, because They do disappear quickly in that chat window. I do think that they go up and up and up. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to invite Ken to come forward while Chrissy's putting the link back in the chat. And Ken, can you come and just talk about the changes to the guiding principles?
Thank you, Pastor. So yeah, this is our church conference part of this meeting to talk about changing to our guiding principles document. So Brian, if you can advance the slides to that section. So as background of this slide says, we changed our governance structure back in 2020 to implement the Board of Stewards. You remember we used to have the Church Council, Administrative Council with the different finance team, SPRC, trustees, and all the different teams, and we pulled that all together in what was called the One Board concept, or the Board of Stewards. And prior to implementing that, we had a group that got together and developed the guiding principles of the Board of Stewards document. So that essentially laid the groundwork for the rules on how Board of Stewards would function. I was on that team. Bill Benson was on that team. Bert was on that team. Anybody else? Rhea was on that team. Okay. So spent a lot of time. There were probably 12 or so of us on there, maybe a few more, to put that document together. And we looked at a lot of other churches that had done something similar. We took what we thought was the best of those and kind of fine-tuned them for the way things have been done here traditionally at our church. And then that was implemented that year at a church conference. There was a vote to implement the Board of Stewards here at our church, and as part of that, the guiding principles. After living into that document for 2.5 years, we have come up with some recommended changes. Of course, you know, that group was trying to anticipate all the things this new group would run into, and for the most part, it has worked great. I think I've been on it, working on my 3rd year now on Board of Stewards, and we the way it was set up has worked really well. There are a few changes that we are proposing tonight to vote on. So just an overview of the Board of Stewards. We have the 14 members, and then the senior pastor is a non-voting member, part of the Board of Stewards, and the treasurer is a non-voting member of the Board of Stewards. And we have a chair, which is Michelle, and a lay leader, which is myself. And then we have coordinators over the different functional areas with the finance coordinator, trustee coordinator, and the staff parish coordinators, and those folks are going to talk to you tonight. And then we have at-large members, and just like the traditional Methodist approach, people are on 3-year terms, so there's a continual rotation of members each year. So that's an overview, and the guiding principle set it up as Christ is the leader of the church, and accordingly the leader of the Board of Stewards. And so we flow from that, and it's set up there. So here you see the 20-page document of the guiding principles, just to give you a flavor for what's in there. Purpose and structure talks about, you know, voting, how that's done, responsibilities of each member's commitment to transparency, how contracts are handled, pastoral connection. I'll let you read the whole list there, but it's a very thorough document that was put together. All right, Brian, next slide. So change number 1, which was kind of a miss on our part when we put together the document, was how we would change the guiding principles. And that, when we realized there were some tweaks we wanted to make, we looked at the guiding principles and said, all right, how do we do that according to the document? Well, you can see in that first bullet there, this says the revisions and or additions to the guiding principles can be recommended by the Board of Stewards and ratified at the next annual or called charge conference. Well, we've talked about the terminology of conferences can get kind of confusing in the Methodist Church, and we used the wrong term. We should not have said charge conference there. We should have said church conference. By setting up as charge conference, when we implemented the Board of Stewards became the charge conference, okay? So we essentially gave the authority of the Board of Stewards to be able to change the guiding principles document. And that was not the intent. The intent was that this document would be fixed and any changes to it would come before the church for approval, which is what we're doing tonight. So the intent was that it would be the church conference that would ratify any changes to this document. So instead of making the changes under the charge conference, we brought this as part of one of the changes that if approved tonight, that term will change from charge conference to require a church conference for changing the guiding principles. The next one was to clarify the role of treasurer, and this one came up pretty quickly. Our treasurer helps us out with a lot of the financial pieces of the church. In the guiding principles, it calls the treasurer the ex officio member, which we needed to clarify that more because there's requirements for attendance at meetings in the guiding principles, and it kind of inferred that the treasurer was supposed to be at all the meetings, and that was a significant burden on that person or that position. And where most of we're doing a lot of day-to-day signing checks and things like that here working in the financial office with the staff team. But the treasurer is part of the email chains and all that. So we decided early on that the treasurer would just need to attend the meetings as required. So we wanted to firm that up in the guiding principles where we had the treasurer function defined as ex officio non-voting member. We were going to add that text there in blue and only required to attend meetings as needed. So change number 3 is around issuing agendas. You can see there what was currently in Article 5, the minutes of each meeting and notice of upcoming meetings shall be communicated to the congregation through the church's website. Any member of laity or staff desiring a special address to the board should do so in advance of the published agenda. Upcoming agendas will be published on the church website at least 7 days prior to the meetings. Well, this became very difficult to meet right off the get-go because we meet every 2 weeks, every other Thursday. And, you know, our communication vehicle right now is our Friday email, which is put on the website. Well, the cutoff for publication into the Friday email is Wednesday. So we would meet on a Thursday, and we essentially have to have our agenda for the following week to be ready, 5 days later, or the Wednesday after our meeting. And we did not have the agenda ready that far ahead of our other meeting. So what we ended up doing was just putting very general, generic agendas in there about the topics, essentially finance report, trustees report, and whatnot. And that agenda was not meaningful. So we wanted to clarify to make sure that the information that needed to be publicized gets publicized. So our recommended change there is we also add the weekly email there. I remember when we were working on the guiding principles, we weren't exactly sure how to word that as far as, because we knew communication methods would change over time. So we have this or here just to clarify that the weekly email is an acceptable way of communicating. So we add the blue text there, the weekly email, as a way to communicate, and any member or laity of staff desiring a special address to the Board of Stewards should do so by contacting the chair of the Board of Stewards in advance of the published agenda. Any upcoming votes by the Board of Stewards with full church significance, for example, finalizing yearly budget, resolutions, upcoming agendas there should be strike through. That's shows as an underline, but that's a formatting issue, and I think we converted these slides. So strike through the upcoming agenda part. So it will say church significance, for example, finalizing yearly budget resolutions will be published on the church website or weekly email at least 7 days prior to the meetings. So we want to make sure if there's anything that the Board of Stewards is going to be discussing of full church significance, that we make that it is published at least a week in advance in the Friday email. If that means delaying a meeting to make sure that happens, then essentially delaying the item being on the meeting agenda to the following 2 weeks, then we would do that. So that's the way we want to change the guiding principles to make sure information that needs to be gets publicized. And then the final one is info on retreats. Currently in Article 5, it says all Board of Stewards meetings shall be open to the congregation in accordance with Book of Discipline, provided the appropriate respect for the business being considered and decorum are maintained during the meetings. As appropriate, the board shall enter into executive or closed session to consider personnel matters, staff salary discussions, potential litigation, contract negotiations, and other items as allowed in the Book of Discipline. Well, the Board of Stewards also realized early on that we needed to have more in-depth time together, so we started doing what we call periodic retreats, and those are on our calendar each year. I think we schedule 4 of them, Michelle. Michelle, that's a question for you. 4 retreats a year, I think we put on our calendar. And essentially a time for deeper relationship building and to discuss strategic issues like the ministry action plan and things like that. We start talking about building that, but we made the commitment that there would be no votes allowed at any of these retreats. So we wanted to put that, sort of codify that in the guiding principles, that periodic retreats may also be conducted by the Board of Stewards for the deep relationship building and discuss strategic issues, but no votes are allowed at the retreats. So those are the 4 changes that helps the Board of Stewards be more efficient, and I think is a better overall a way to help provide the guidance in the future. So, questions on the chat or in the room on the changes?
On the chat from PJVZ, should number 3, that change be instead of or, should it be and? Website and weekly email?
We had it or. At this current time, the weekly email is published on the website, okay? But we are looking at other ways to provide more security around possibly a login for church members onto the website, so that all those communications aren't available to the World Wide Web. So right now we feel it could be an or in the future. Right now it's an and. But if the weekly email would go away, which I don't see that happening, but you never know what technology changes or whatnot, then you'd have to at least do one of those 2 or make another change to the guiding principles. Yeah, the recommended is an or. Mm-hmm. Okay, fairly tedious process to work through those changes there, but it's important that we all understand that this is a very important document. So anytime it's changed, everybody, we have accountability for those changes, and that's why we're doing a church vote. Okay?
All right, are there other questions? This is the time for questioning. Are there other questions, any unclarity about what is being voted on here today, either in the House or in the chat? Any questions from the chat? Why don't you come in? Let me hear this.
Whether the grading principles are available for all members to see on the website, the guiding principle as a whole.
I think, yeah, the question is, do we have the guiding principles available for the congregation to see when they want to, on the website or anywhere else? Do we have that? Okay, then we probably need to make sure that we do have the guiding principles available so the congregation can see it and know exactly what those 20 pages are. We can publish them somewhere, or yeah. Are there other questions or insights? Is everybody clear about what's being voted on? I know in the Methodist Church, silence usually means yes. Okay. Yeah, do we have something we can review the points? Yeah, so can you come up and just review them one more time, just quickly, just give a sentence for each one.
Yeah, so we're voting all 4 changes in one vote. Change number 1 is changing how to ratify changes to the board guiding principles. That will be in church conference, not in charge conference. Number 2 was to clarify the role of the treasurer. Number 3 was on the agendas, be able to publish significant stuff, make sure that's shown and not just generic agendas. And then finally, the one on information on retreats, and no votes are allowed at retreats.
Give Ken a hand. I couldn't have done that. Any other questions? Okay, so if you're ready to vote in the House, you can just raise your hand, and Michelle, maybe you can count the votes in the House. And if you, hold on, I haven't called it yet. And if you're online, does everybody online have access to the link to vote? Does everybody have it now?
Yes, thank you, Kathy, we got that fixed.
Okay, good. Okay. All right, so if you are in favor of these changes, would you please raise your hand or cast your vote online? All right. Has everybody online had a chance to vote? Likewise, if you are not in favor of these changes, would you please either raise your hand if you're in the House or indicate your vote online? Okay, has everybody had a chance to vote? Is there anybody online who has not had a chance to vote? Please indicate so in the chat. Is there any indication that people have not voted or have not had a chance to vote? Okay, then what's our result? It looks like in the House it was unanimous yes. And how many votes do we have online? Okay. Okay. Is that Jesse? He's still voting? Now, I'm willing to sit here and smile all night now. Let's go on and vote. Yeah, only when I'm preaching. Okay, I'm going to declare the vote closed in 10, 9, 8, 7. What's his question? Yeah, well, if it's not for this meeting, we'll take it after the meeting's closed.
That's the question.
I can't read that. What is it? No, the only thing we're voting on right now would be the issues that Ken brought up for the guiding principles. That's the only thing on the floor at this point. Because of the nature of a church conference, the items to be voted on have to be handwritten, have to be written out and given to the DS so the DS knows what we're voting on specifically. So the only things we can vote on are those 4 items that Ken mentioned. Is that clear? So that's the answer. If there are no other questions, now the reason that we can only vote on the items that are specified is just so we don't be here all night voting on every issue that comes up in a church. We all good? Okay. Okay. So that's it. I hereby declare this church vote is closed in the adjournment of the church conference. Can we say amen? Amen. Thank all of you. Let me tell you, you were good. And I appreciate your giving yourself to this process. And now Michelle will continue on with our town hall.
Yes, thank you so much, guys. Sorry for the technology glitch. We're learning as we go, but I think we got it squared. And so we are now officially out of church conference. I keep wanting to call it church conference. That's why I hesitate every time. But anyway, we are now officially into the town hall portion of tonight's meeting. And as mentioned, we've got updates from 5 of our leaders. We've got a jam-packed agenda here, so I'm going to roll on into this section. I'm going to kindly ask everyone to keep their questions until the end, because we will probably answer some of them as we go along. And of course, we will continue to monitor the chat for questions. So first up is Liz Rhines. Liz is serving as our Staff Parish Relations Chair this year. She's been a very busy lady. So Liz, give us a staffing update.
Thank you. All right. Okay. Thank you, guys, and welcome to you guys online. Just going to give you a quick update. Like I said, I am working with Staff Parish as a member of the Board of Stewards, and Kristen Fuchs, if you want to stand, Kristen Fuchs is also working with our Staff Parish portion of the Board of Stewards, and has been a great asset this year. Just wanted to give you a quick update. As you are aware, Brian Sullivan left as the Director of Digital Media and Technology in February, and we have been busy trying to prepare to find a replacement for him. We have gone through a job review and looked at all aspects of the job description, and just to give you a quick overview, his position includes running church production. It includes managing all of our social media accounts and also coordinating our marketing with our marketing team. So we have made a few changes to that job description through the search committee, and we have posted the position on Indeed, on the Western North Carolina Conference, and on churchstaffing.com. So we have been going through the interview process. We have finished up final in-person interviews, and we do hope to have a decision in the next couple of weeks. The one thing I want to shout out to our staff is, of course, it's been difficult. This has been a 2-month process of looking for somebody to replace this position, and Kathleen and Rhea have stepped up doing the email, and Brian Bingham's been running the videos, and Mitch has been here helping on Sunday morning. So if you could give the staff a hand for all their hard work while this has been going on, we certainly could not do it without your willingness to step in. The other thing that we work on as part of Staff Parish is we have a staff care team, and just wanted to let you know, if you could, Cammie Keeley is our new chair of our staff care committee, who works with showing our appreciation to our staff on birthdays, anniversaries, and other special events. So she took over from Francis, who did a fantastic job leading that team also. Then the last thing that we're working on right now is working on the employee handbook. Kristen is in charge of reviewing all the new policies and procedures. We have gone through reviews over the course of time, but we are finalizing all the last changes that we have to make. So hopefully that will be finalized in the next month or so. So that's my update. Thank you so much, and thank you to the online audience.
Thank you so much, Liz. Up next, we're going to have a stewardship update from Lynn Comstock. So, Lynn, you're up.
Hi, guys. I get to do the fun part, the money. So, through February, we actually we're sitting in a net income status at the end of February. We had $42,000 more come in than went out, which is always a great thing when you're an accountant and when you have a business, which the church is to a certain extent. We have to pay our bills. So it was really a good first 2 months. We had budgeted for a loss because usually our first 2-3 months of the year are our slowest months, and we actually had a very good February. So we are ahead of the game at the end of February. Go to the next slide. The not so good news is March ran behind what we had hoped for. We were about $32,000 off budget for contributions in March. Weather, other things have caused that. So we'll end up still ahead at the end of March, but not as far ahead as we were in February. So hopefully the trend will reverse, and Easter hitting in April usually is a very good month for us, so we'll see how that goes. From the expense side, our staff has done a very good job of keeping cost under control. We also had several staff positions that were open that had been budgeted for, which is part of the savings that we had over the first couple of months. And those are slowly getting filled, thanks to Liz and her team. So we'll be kind of evening out on the expense side as we go forward. Next slide. So this is our cash position. Cash is king, and so that's what we have to keep an eye on. And as of the end of February 23 versus February 22, we're down about $100,000 in total cash. We had about a $50,000 loss in 22, so that was cash that we used from PPP monies and other monies that we had. But we've been staying pretty stable the last few months. And that's it. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Lynn. Up next is Ed Hyland, who you will learn in his update. He is working very hard to save us money on the facilities fronts. Thanks, Ed.
Thanks, Michelle. Okay, I've got 10 items up there. I forgot to number them, but they are in alphabetical order as opposed to cost or importance. And I'm just going to go down the list, and I'm going to read what's here because when I wing things, I take way too long. The first item is Celebration Garden Drainage. Several years ago, we added a wonderful outdoor memorial experience for our church between the worship center and the fellowship hall corridor to my right. Even though the contractor did a beautiful job with the garden and even installed with a great automatic irrigation system, which I'm real in favor of, unfortunately for us, it had an inadequate drainage system designed and installed, which together with a very rainy season that we had just before the turn of the year, the combination ended up flooding the level of the worship center hallways. And the reason it did is because the actual elevation of the garden walkway is slightly higher, not lower, than the worship center floorways. So fortunately, we had a couple of good guys around like Neil Brown and Tim Stokes who noticed it, took interest in diagnosing the cause and actually remediating it with some blowers that day, the first day that showed up, and carried it on through to get the real lowest of 3 proposals to repair it. And I might add that the contractor came right in the nick of time to avoid a much larger flooding problem because it continued to rain. And we'd had prior to his coming or to start the project. The rain continued through, and the contractor was delayed many weeks before being able to come finish his work and get the additional stones moved from the parking space, as you remember maybe, and restore the fence that they had temporarily taken down. Note one of the Lenten wish items is to replace a couple trees or plants that were damaged by the work done in the garden. And thank you for those contributions on that. Much thanks to Neil and Tim for their work. And if they have anything else to share, whether they're online or not, please do at this time. We'll save that for the end. But thanks also to Francis and Keith Surgener, who look after the Celebration Garden routinely for us. The second item is about our hydronic system in the lower level of the worship center. It's a chilled and hot water system that does our HVAC. It requires periodic testing because they're closed loops and we don't want the water chemistry to get out of spec. We've been having a contractor to do that for us a few times a year, and we've discontinued that as a cost-saving measure, and I'll be performing those tests to make sure our water chemistry is within those acceptable parameters, so that we'll not have corrosion problems with our system. We've already replaced the chiller and the boiler in the worship center and did quite some recent maintenance during the last of the pandemic for the classrooms that were vacant during the pandemic, and those problems we don't expect to recur. Doing this test ourselves will save us about $1,000 annually. The third item is about the main kitchen dishwasher. It's a real fine commercial unit. It has a booster heater that takes the already hot water at 140 degrees and heats it up to another 40 degrees to sanitize the dishes washed in the commercial dishwasher we've used for 32 years. This past November was the first time that we'd had any problems out of that. And once again, Neil Brown and Tim Stokes noticed water dripping out of the bottom of this electrical cabinet, which we all know is not a good thing. They watched it for a couple of weeks when it was just a drip, and it got worse and worse. And finally, they had to isolate the power and the water to it. We had a contractor come out and diagnose the problem, said it was going to take $4,200 to replace the booster, and he could do it for $6,000, I think, including the cost of the booster. Well, I thought that might be, we might be able to install it ourselves. And after some research and support from the Board of Stewards, I think we'll save about $4,500 of that $6,000 by replacing the tank with a new stainless steel tank that will not rust out on us, and reusing most of the original parts to restore it, which, by the way, kept operating the whole time there was water leaking out of it. I came from 3 generations of plumbers, and I know how to refurbish the equipment and get it back to safe and reliable operation. And I appreciate the board of confidence that, or the confidence vote that the board gave me to do that work. Another of the Lenten wish lists, which has been fully funded, was to restore the dishwasher to operation. We thank you for those contributions. The fourth item is facility management strategy. The next item, I'd like to appreciate Ken Beasley for reminding me of this item. During the pandemic, we had some challenges in our staffing that included a short stint of a full-time person that was perhaps overqualified for the job, another short stint of another full-time person that was maybe less qualified at a lower salary, and even we went a year without anyone in that position. Rhea, thank you so much for handling us and carrying us through that time. And we finally have hired a half-time guy, Chad Hancock, who is working, within his capacity of expertise, and also working with Rhea to get contract workers to handle problems. But we're also continuing to involve volunteers from the church. Rich Comstock works with the folks, a big team of folks, to handle a lot of things for our building and grounds. We appreciate Rick for doing that. And I've also mentioned Tim Stokes and Neil Brown before. Neil was our original church architect. And they've been doing extensive volunteer work for lighting and all kinds of other cabinetry and other painting and problems like that. And Bill, I didn't have you down here, but I'm going to mention you too for painting. We've just typically done a lot of volunteer work at the church, and we'll continue to do that. But I wanted to mention that because Chad works under direct supervision by Rhea, and sometimes the volunteers like to involve him in some of our projects. We need to make sure that we coordinate with Rhea what we're asking Chad to do and make sure that she doesn't have something maybe more important for him to do for that day. But so all of you volunteer folks, if you'll keep that in mind, I would appreciate it. Okay. The next item is what I call our Winnie the Pooh item. Back in February, honeybees were discovered on the tongue of our Boy Scout trailer in the lower parking lot. In investigating the situation, Rhea witnessed the bees swarming to the huge walnut treasure tree in our picnic area. Once again, Rhea came to our rescue and found a beekeeper who devised a plan to safely remove the honeybees from the tree, and eventually, maybe weeks, I don't know where we stand with that. I don't think he's done yet. And Janice is kind of keeping a good eye on that too. Y'all can maybe update me on that. But eventually they'll all be in the box. There's a box on the outside of the tree, and they can go in the box from the tree or from the outside, but they can't get back in the tree. So that's the way this is supposed to work. And then once they get in the box and he's convinced that they're complete as moving in there, he'll take them home and they'll be his bees at that point. Rhea now, though, has a whole list of potential beekeepers that we'll keep and call on to handle in such future problems. The sixth item is during the pandemic, and likely well before, we had a few fluorescent and other lights to stop working. Some were just burned out lamps, others were burned out ballast, or maybe other problems. Tim Stokes and Neil Brown, led that effort, and I've helped them out some to get most of the lights across our campus fully operational with a few exceptions. We were able to minimize costs by purchasing some bulb lamps from the Restore, Habitat Restore, at the cost of 10 cents on the dollar, and ballast on eBay at a much reduced cost from the market, and have got all those working great. And if you look, it's really nice to look in this room and notice all the lights working, with maybe the exception of the 3 on either side above the big screens, because they put some glare on it and you can't see quite as well. So that's on purpose that those are off. Okay, we still may have many LED lamps in use, but I did make the choice to discontinue our practice of replacing ballast that burned out with LED lights. It involved a little more capital and a little more effort to rework them than it did to replace the ballast. And because of that, we'll have a little higher operating expense than if I had replaced them with LEDs. But we seem to be delighted with what we've got. And in the future, if we've got some more capital to play with, we'll maybe go back to replacing the fluorescent lights with LEDs. But thank you all for noticing when we've got lights out and when toilets are running and that sort of thing, to keep us posted on all of these little tweaks we need to make. The seventh item is really already been resolved. Rhea keeps us up to date with new items all the time, and as they come up, and we weren't really able to get involved in this seventh item, which was the security system has some problems back in the Disciple Center, and she's had some input from the contractor, and she's actually already signed the contract to have him complete that work for us. Had some problems with communication with the security system, with our telephone system. And it's also going to be a panel that will be replaced, but that will be done by our contractor. And thank you, Rhea, for getting us on the road to fixing that problem. Also in the security area, we inherited or were transferred an item of business from last year's Board of Stewards. And I admit I have not done anything to address this again with other pressing issues. I believe if it were urgent or significant concern, we would have resolved it by now, or at least begun to resolve it. And it's involving updating the security cameras. Can you give us any more detail on that you recall, or Bill?
Yeah, Rhea could probably had some proposals for us to add cameras to our system and upgrade some cameras in our system. So, but it is a significant capital expense, Rhea, or $3,000 or $4,000, I think it was, wasn't it? Yeah. $14,000. So we do need to make upgrades to some of our current cameras, and we want to add cameras throughout the campus. Some areas strategic areas we think need to be added, so it is an expense that we have on our plate to figure out how to fund.
Thank you. Yeah. We also are investigating some grant money that might be available to us from the Department of Homeland Security that's kind of tied in with the pandemic season. For security purposes, we can maybe spend some money, get some money for that. Thank y'all for those updates. Also, there's the 9th item is for weekday school restroom upgrades. This is another of 2 items that we carried over from last year's Board of Steward business. Our weekday school director, Shannon Long, would like us to renovate the children's restrooms in the weekday school. They're showing a lot of wear and stain in the floors and walls, and they take a lot of maintenance to repair the toilets and lavatory faucets with leakage. Chad has helped repair some of these, but we've also had to call in plumbers who know the trick and have special tools for flush valve repairs. I've made some effort to talk with Shannon and go around with her and see what she's got in mind, but to date have not really developed this plan for this project. I should say that the weekday school has a budget item that may well cover this if we keep the project scope conservative. And the church may also be able to add to their funds, which they'd like to keep some available for use for other contingencies. Weekday school attendance was hit hard by the pandemic, but is being rebuilt back up, and we appreciate that. We want to work with the weekday school to keep those folks happy. But Shannon really wants to be proud when she shows prospective new members and students to walk through that area and not see stained bottoms of toilet seats and that sort of thing. Apparently the stains cannot be removed, but I'm going to go at it really hard with my wife, who knows about those things, and see if we can't either clean those up or replace those. And there's some other things I'm looking at. The last one is by no means the least, windows. And I thought I'd get biblical on you on this. The next to the last verse in that great love chapter 13 of 1 Corinthians says, "For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then shall I know even as I am also known." And that's really talking about when we get to heaven, things aren't going to be so cloudy as are our windows. And I commented tonight that I didn't really realize that these lower windows and the 3 of the windows on the right side of the sanctuary are among those that have lost their seal and they're all fuzzy. But we've got an effort to fix those. We don't think we should allow the windows of God's house to not be clear. And several that are conspicuous location as these have lost their moisture seal and are fogged up. This is the last of the Lenten wish list items that I'll mention, and it's partially funded. we do appreciate those funds, extra funds. You can see we're struggling a little bit financially, and anything that we any help that we can get from you to fix these items, we appreciate it. Also, I wanted to mention that there are a couple of windows in the Disciple Center. We're working on some repairing those latches, thanks to Neil Brown again. And also, Jesse Adams has graciously offered to have a window in Bert's office repaired that was mysteriously broken during the Boy Scout barbecue. We don't think that anybody there did it, but Jesse's told me that he doesn't have anyone that stepping up for being responsible for it. But they've also made some dings and nicks on the wall that they've offered to pay for, and we've just handled it by the church and not passed those charges on to them in the past. So, you know, as Boy Scouts do, they step up and do the right thing now, and then we're going to let Jesse pay for that window. And thank you so much, and look forward to you helping us keep this place a place we can be proud of.
Thank you so much, Ed. I think you can see we have an aging facility, so there's no shortage of challenges, but thank you and to many others for working on these issues. We're going to pull Lynn back up here because Ed mentioned the Lenten wish list several times, and so Lynn's going to give us an overall update on that.
I'd like to give a shout out to Phyllis Van Cleve. She keeps up with our finances so very well for the church, and she sent me an email today that gives us an update on the Lenten wish list. And so when Ed brought it up, I'm like, yep, we need to go over that. First of all, our wish list goal was $18,260. We've gotten $10,705 of that donated so far. That's really great. So I'm going to just give y'all, my phone's about to die, so if it dies, I'll just have to stop, but I'll try to talk fast. Our Easter banner, we received more than our goal, so it's paid for. Our Easter mailings, Pastor Donnell will be glad to know, are paid for, totally funded. Our Welcome Center gifts, we had asked for 500, we have nothing. Ching ching. Our organ key repair, we had asked for 3,000, we've gotten 1,450 of it, so we're halfway there, Matt. The plant replacement in the Celebration Garden, we had asked for 1,500 and we've gotten 1,000, so that's good. Fifth Sunday UC Family Zone, we had asked for 1,000 and we've gotten 100. Need to work on that, folks. The Truth Cafe, we had asked for 1,500. We have not received anything on that, so good thing for people to be thinking about. The ministry conference for Zach and 2 youth leaders, we had asked for 900 and we've gotten 150. For the kitchen fund, we had asked for 4,000 and we've gotten 4,150. So the kitchen fund is done. The window fund, we had asked for 5,000 and we've gotten 2,800. So more than halfway there on the windows. And then we've gotten about $300 that was just given to us to put wherever we want to put it. So we've done really well with the Lenten wish list. So thank y'all.
Thanks, Lynn. And it's not too late to give. Easter's not yet passed yet, so please prayerfully consider those line items, especially the ones that haven't gotten any love so far. Up next is Judy Besler. She is going to give an update on the campus plan project that she has been tirelessly leading for some time now. Oh, thank you, Matt. You're so kind. Here you go, Judy. Second.
Oh, this is fine. I just can't use my hand. Thank you. Hello. Boy, that's a bright light. My name, as Michelle said, my name is Judy Besler, and I am a Campus Plan Project Committee member. With me on the committee this year are Ken Beasley, Bill Benson, Rich Comstock, Karen Gould, Corey Hendrick, Robert Howlett, John Rigsby, and David Waynand. Thank you all, committee members past and current. Thank you to Rhea. Can we take a quick second and just give Rhea hand, like all for her, because she does so much for us and for the church. And thank you to the Pastor D and the Board of Stewards for your questions, contributions, all of your work that you have done and the time that you've put into the campus plan project so far. Just as a quick aside, and I'm going to stay within my time, Michelle, don't worry. June of this year marks the 35th anniversary that the church made a decision, our church made a decision to move from their Belmont location. I got that from looking back at the 25th anniversary booklet that was published. And so, yay, UCUMC 35 years ago. That 1988 congregation enthusiastically supported the purchase of this 15-acre campus and its master plan for development. When the new campus was underway, Reverend Tim Oman, the chaplain at UCUNC Charlotte, commented that our church was a bit different from the typical United Methodist Church. He said there was an exciting difference at UCUMC in a very specific way. He said that we had the good qualities of our mainline denomination, but we also had the free spirit more commonly found in independent congregations. So, yay, church. And that spirit of independence and curiosity and moving forward has stayed with this church for all of these years. In the spring, I'm going to slide one, yep. In the spring of 2021, the Board of Stewards revisited how the campus was used. They initiated a campus plan to explore how our campus could further our church's mission of changing the world by making disciples of Jesus who bless others, belong in community, and believe in Jesus. An ad hoc committee was formed at that time to identify, vet, and interview land use planning firms. In October of 2021, the board accepted the recommendation of the committee and engaged Shook Kelly. The campus plan project and Shook Kelly were introduced to the congregation at a town hall meeting November 22nd that same year. Next slide, please. Over the next few months, the campus plan committee and Shook Kelly completed the project's first 3 phases. One of the first milestones was defining the 5 campus plan projects organizing principles, and they are: become an integral part of a broader community, meet people where they are in their own life, celebrate the diversity of our congregation in the surrounding community, be intentional in the stewardship of the existing property and in the creation of future development, and preserve, celebrate, and enjoy the unique natural features of this property. Other significant milestones including gathering pertinent campus information, drawings, church records, and utilization reports were also completed. Deeds, assessments, right-of-ways, restrictions, and additional public information, including local area demographics and area development projects, were also collected. In April of 2022, the congregation received an online questionnaire asking for observations about our campus. The questions included: what are your favorite places on campus? What spaces or uses would you like to see in the future? If you could magically transport any place in the world to our campus, regardless of size or features, what places inspire you and give you a strong sense of belonging? We received 42 responses, and they were all collated. And it turns out that church members' replies were all in specific groups. We can gather them together. So, welcoming atmosphere, places for calm enjoyment, walkability, and being in nature were important to most people. Places that encourage community activities and created energy were also popular replies. Shook Kelly and the committee used those responses along with the gathered research and narrowed down the possibilities to 4 potential campus futures called alternative futures. And I think we can go to the next slide. Oh, I'm sorry, back one? Yep, there we are, thank you. You're ahead of me, thank you. Shook Kelly and the committee, again, those alternative futures. 1, do nothing. That means that we just stay where we are today, nothing changes, with our church programs, missions, or financial support, everything stays the same. Number 2 was sell specific land, selling off a portion of the campus with use restrictions dictated by UCUMC, but we would no longer own pieces of the property. Number 3 was renew and redevelop. With the help of a development partner and the input from our church, we would design a carefully crafted public realm with the church as its central focus. And number 4 is divest and relocate, which would mean that we would sell the campus as a choice and use the proceeds from that sale to relocate. And with the real estate market now, that would be a sweet amount of money that we would receive. Next slide, please. A second campus plan project town hall was held on June 6, 2022. 96 church members attended, 53 in person and 43 online. Shook Kelly presented the 4 alternative futures, how we chose them, and answered questions. Attendees also were polled in person and virtually with questions about the 4 future alternatives. Alternative number 3, renew and redevelop, received the most positive response from a composite feedback number of 71%. I invite you to use the QR code you see on your screen or the URL to pick that up if you can, to get the full 22-page report, which is the Shook Kelly June 6th Town Hall report, and that is available for you to download or view online in a PDF format. I'm going to leave that up for a second, just so people can get it, and we'll come back to that at the end of we'll just flip back to number 5 after we finish. Now, next slide, please. There we go. Now, let's talk about the next steps. Last year, the Board of Stewards voted to move forward with the next phase of the campus plan, which is gauge market interest and strategic planning. This phase is where vision meets reality, guys. Now we're moving into the real deal. The committee has interviewed several commercial real estate planning firms and is in final negotiations with one of them. During this project phase, the commercial real estate firm will first conduct informal inquiries with potential development partners to understand the feasibility of renewing and redeveloping our campus. These conversational inquiries will test the waters without financial projections, partnerships, or commitments. If there is market interest, the committee, Shook Kelly, and the Board of Stewards will set parameters and goals for possible development. The commercial real estate planning firm will then create straw man financial models, sort of what-if scenarios. If the Board of Stewards decides to move forward after reviewing the financial models, Shook Kelly, the commercial real estate planning firm, and the campus plan project will develop a strategic plan. The strategic plan will be presented to the Board of Stewards and the congregation for approval. Notice there's a lot of ifs, ands, so there's a lot of dependencies here. If the Board of Stewards and the congregation approve the strategic plan, it will be presented to the North Carolina Conference of the United Methodist Church for their approval. Whew, there's a lot of approval pieces going in here. There is no set timeline for these additional steps. They will depend on our church's readiness, the use limitations we impose, development partners, agreements, and timelines, and other variables. We look forward to the next exciting phases of the campus plan project and hope you do too. And as always, we will continue to keep you posted. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. That was great. Appreciate it. Last but certainly not least, we have Bill Benson, who is going to provide an update on the marketing front. Bill rolled off the Board of Stewards at the end of the year and rolled right into marketing, not even missing a beat. And so he's going to be telling us what's been going on at that front.
All righty. All right, very good. So as we developed a marketing team, there's a couple, 3 of us doing this, and as soon as we got going, of course, Brian left. So we'll be working with whoever they hire to be the new person coming in. So we will be in coordination with that staff member. So let's see, a couple things here is that the purpose of this is we wanted to do something like this. We wanted to shift our marketing strategy to focus to new people. In the past, for many years, if we'd get mailers and being a member, I'd always get the little card telling me what's coming up. But they got to thinking about it is that we need to really be reaching out to new people. And we've got emails, we got website, we got so many ways to reach our current congregation that what we really need to do is focus on bringing new people in. We got a great corner here. But the problem is that you can't see us, especially in the summertime with all the leaves up. As big as this building is, you can drive right by and completely miss us. And so, we need to let people know that we're here. And so that's part of the whole focus is, letting people know that we're here. And, of course, raise the visibility of the church. And, of course, to encourage new attendees. So there's a couple things we've done already. But here's some things I'll get back. I'll show you these in just a minute. So what I did was is that we started focusing on Easter, what we're going to do about Easter. So on the Easter thing is I went out and there's a couple tools we can use. Everything is called every door direct mail. And you can go out and pick specific mail routes. And we developed a flyer, which I'll show you on the next slide. Brian, why don't you go ahead and go to that next slide and you can go back. There you go. So you can see this is the flyer that we sent out. And we sent out 3,500 of these flyers. It's every door direct mail. Now, what I did with that is in conjunction with the team, so we looked at it, is you can pick the mail routes that you want to use. So what I did for this time is I just picked the mail routes, and it's kind of crazy how these mail routes work. But if you go up Brown Road, you got Maridale there on the left. It goes down Brown Road and all that. So I hit that Maridale. Well, believe it or not, that mail route actually goes over onto Ridge Road, down that way to all those apartments and stuff. So I got that Maridale done, some of those apartments on Ridge Road. I hit another one that was basically back where Bert lives there in that Prosperity Ridge, back in that area over that piece of it. Then I went back a little bit into the Huntersville area. Hit another mail route there that is, if you live in Highland Creek, you'll know when you come out of Highland Creek on the Eastfield, you turn to the right there. There's a new neighborhood for 55 plus people or, old folks like myself, there's new homes there. But anyway, hit the backside of Skybrook, come back down Eastfield and over there hit Olmsted and part of the Asbury Chapel Road back down some of those new homes down in there. But anyway, that totaled just over 3,500 mailers. And so the thing that we need to do once we get our new person hired on is come up with a strategy as to how we're going to, do mailings or other types of things throughout the year. That's got to be the big thing. We got to come with a strategy. But the big thing right off the bat was we got to get the Easter thing done. Another thing I did for Easter was the banner. We hung this banner out there. One thing that Ken and Eddie helped me do this. That is a huge drop off. I mean, we were 10 feet up in a tree putting the banner up, and the banner's still about street level. You think that thing was way up there. I got there, I was like, man, that thing was just right there. So in addition to that, I got to thinking about it. So I got 2 more banners, which after we're over with, I'm going to go hang them up here on the corner. But the good thing about it is the banners don't have a date on them. So we can roll them up. We can use them next year, however. So it just says, invite for Easter. Using the same basic plan here. You are invited. Okay, Brian, go back to that slide. Okay, now one thing that looking at what's happening around here, I take the Business Journal and I read these business articles all the time because I'm interested in what's going on around here. Believe it or not, in 2022, the zip codes of 28269 and 287, what's Huntersville? 078. You know what Huntersville is anyway. Those 2 zip codes, amazingly, were the 2 largest zip codes in the whole area for new house closings, even more than anything on the south side or anything. Those are the 2 largest ones. I was really surprised to see that. So what I did, I noticed in the back of the Business Journal every week when I get it, they have all the closings that are houses, they've closed by address and everything. So I called the Business Journal. I said, could I possibly get that entire listing for 3 zip codes, 28078, 28269, and 28262. And in that, I think there was like 25 to 2,800 closings in those 3 zip codes. That's a bunch. So the plan is, what we want to do is to take those. Now, we're going to quell some of those out because some of them, they're way up in Huntersville. Probably no sense sending it up that way. But if they're closer on this end, I'd say basically that Huntersville Concord Road, that kind of back this way. You know, Lynn, you guys, not much past where you guys are. But anyway, look at those, get some of those, get out that are above that. But then I think out of that, we could probably come up with probably 1,800 brand new addresses. So what we can do on that is we can do those in bulk mailing. Now, I've partnered with this Lake Printing down the street, so we can do everything via bulk mail, not have to pay full mail price on that. Good thing is we're a nonprofit, so we can use a nonprofit bulk mailing code, so it gets the price down to like 12 or 13 cents per piece, right? And they'll do all the work. So if I just give them the list on a spreadsheet, they'll print it, address them, take it to the post office, and knock the whole thing out for us. So I want to do that in a couple of phases, like soon, to get those out, to let people know that when they're moving in, welcome to church. We just got to devise the flyer that we want to come up with. I just got to put that together. That's the reason I hope we hire someone really soon that can help me put that flyer together. The other thing after that is, after we get all those sent out, is we do, every week I get this business journal, so I'm making a list of all the houses that close in those 3 zip codes. Then I'll do a spreadsheet, and about once a quarter, what we'll do is we'll, boom, send them out. You have to have 200 addresses to do bulk mailing. So once we get, if we get below 200, we'll just have to pay for them ourselves. But that way, anybody that moves in with those 3 zip codes will at least get a welcome to try to come and visit our church, okay? Now, you guys know I've been here since day one, and when we first moved here, we did some marketing, but I'm gonna tell you, for the last 20 years, we have virtually done none. And, you know, so that's something you Board of Stewards guys know that, and SLI team, I've been screaming about this for the last 4 or 5 years, so I'm glad we're finally on board doing this. But let me see if there's anything else. The apartments, I did discover in the every door direct mail, it did hit the apartments. I was afraid that it didn't hit the apartments, but it did hit those apartments. So that's a good thing. But I'll put up there about the apartments. My feeling is on the apartments is we need to, at some point, if we could just get maybe in an outreach thing, is an apartment team to go to the apartments to see, can we put up flyers? I mean, what are the rules? What can we do? As you know, if you drive around, especially up that way and up Trine Street, the number of apartments being built is just, it's overwhelming. It's just hard to believe. And we just figured out, tried a way to do that. I've covered that. And so I just hope the marketing works out well. We had 3,500. Being a marketeer, sales guy myself, is if I put out 3,500, I'm just be very honest with you. If I get 30 visitors, I'll be happy. Okay? If I get 30 visitors, I'm happy. But listen, 30 is more than we've had. So, and if you look at the numbers, I've always looked at this. Hey, if we have 5 visitors a week, you take 52 weeks, that's over 250 people visiting a year. You know, if you figure you keep your percentage of X amount, you see, it's just driving those in. One thing I get to thinking about, though, is we can do all of this by sending this stuff out, which we hadn't done. But the best way to market is word of mouth, inviting people you know. That's the best way to do it, quite honestly. But anyway, but we've got to let people know that we're here. So that's the marketing piece.
Thank you so much, Bill. It's very exciting to have the marketing going. And I echo what Bill said. The best invitation is a personal invitation. And then, of course, it's, as I mentioned yesterday in our listening session, welcoming is everybody's responsibility. So that's on us as well. We're now going to move into the Q&A portion. And I believe there was a question in the room, perhaps. I know this was a lot of material to go through, but we do want to take some time for questions. on any of these topics that have just been covered. Of course, the appropriate presenter will come back up here to answer the question as needed. But are there any, we'll start in the house. Looks like Bill's got his hand up. You want to come down here or I can repeat it? Oh, okay. Ken's going to be the mic runner.
This has got to be on the recording. Okay, here goes. My question is for the finance lady. I have two. Of course, being on board of stewards and familiar with this whole budget thing, first question I have is that have we been looking at, because we've discussed this a lot, about the designated funds that are out there in Never Never Land, and we've often said, how can we need to spend some of that money at times, would like to, and have we looked at doing anything with that? That's question number one. And then the other one I want to ask is that within that budget money that we have, we had discussed last year, is that when we have some repairs, like Eddie's talking about maybe doing some things with that, is instead of taking that money out of our regular budget, could we take that money out of some of that building fund money that we had? We discussed about taking that money and using it versus using budget money so it wouldn't come around. And I'm just wondering, are we still on the path to do that, to make that happen?
Thank you, Bill. Yes. The answer is we're looking at the designated funds. We do have a lot of money sitting in designated funds, but some of those designated funds are for maintenance. So we're definitely using those funds. The Celebration Garden is a good example. We had about $13,000 or so in the Celebration designated fund. The work is going to be a little over 15, somewhere between 15 and 16,000. So that extra amount is going to come out of the building maintenance designated fund. We've got some designated funds for some other purposes that are no longer being done by the church, like Stephen's ministry and a few other things. So we are looking into the way that the church at large will let us redirect those funds. And so there's still some questions about that we're looking into, but there are funds that could be used for other purposes if we can get some total direction on how to do that. So I'm working on that, but the ones that we have that we can use for what they were made for, right? Like the building maintenance and some other designated funds, we're using those now instead of that coming out of the general fund. I can't remember, I just had that up on the slide, so I should know, but we have over $100,000 in designated funds, I think closer to $2. So looking at ways to use those for the church today is what we're trying to work on. So can't totally answer your question of how we're going to get some of those funds released, but we're working on it. And the ones that we can release, we're using this year.
And then some of those, instead of putting it towards mortgage, we put it in building fund this year. The so-and-sos traditionally have donated their funds to mortgage retirement, and this year we put it into the building fund.
And that was very helpful. The so-and-sos give us a lot of money. They're busy little people. And, but it's just something for people to think about. A lot of people like to put their money into designated funds for a particular purpose. The problem with that is when that purpose down the road becomes something we don't do anymore, like Stephen's ministry and some others that we have. So putting to the general fund is usually a better idea for the church to be able to handle the money for what's needed. But we will be looking at how to use those designated funds to keep the church moving forward.
Thank you, Lynn. I'm so confused about these microphones. Can you take that? Thank you. I apologize. Sandra Williams commented on the chat. I wanted to share her comment. It relates to your presentation, Bill. She mentions that the church information cards were effective for her to introduce church to people she met around the community. So we might want to consider printing up a few cards for that purpose, if that makes sense. Okay, Sandra, Bill just gave a big thumbs up to that idea, so thank you for sharing that. Okay.
It's fine, go ahead.
Okay, Bert, you got a question.
Okay, so I had 3 questions because you had so many things I had to write them down. So the first one was for Liz. You were mentioning things in the job description for the new community digital. I forgot the name of that. Sorry, that person. I did not hear. I heard you say social media, but I did not hear you say oversight of the website. Is that going to be something that is part of their description?
Yes, thank you for clarifying that.
Okay.
Yes, definitely includes the website and social media, all basic communication channels that we have
All
are
right,
under that
perfect.
job description.
Thank you.
That's a great question.
What's that?
I said, should Liz sit down? Or
Oh, yeah, the next one's going to be for, I think probably for Eddie. So Eddie, you were talking about the restroom upgrades for the weekday school. And so you talked about so the weekday school does have their own capital account, right? Money
Right.
they set aside, but what you're saying is that currently we don't think they would have enough to cover that, or
Well,
that would
no,
be something we might split?
We don't have the scope developed yet for that.
Okay.
So, but if it, Shannon has, some big wishes for that. But at the same time, their money that's available, they don't want to deplete it all the way down and not be able to do some other things that they
Right.
do. So if we get ambitious on what the project will be, we may want to talk about, giving them a little bit from our budget as well.
Okay, all right, perfect. And then the third one was for land development. And so Judy, I know you were talking about, there's not a specific timeline, but is there any way to say, hey, we think, because I've heard at one point I've heard we may have to get rezoning stuff done, we may have to get other things done. So is there, hey, we think within the next 18 months we could be moving dirt, or we have no idea? And then once the project starts, do we have any kind of idea? Would it be all done at once? Would it be done in phases? And how long might that take?
Well, we know that it's going to take about 4 months to do the investigation and the financials and get it through the Western Conference, and that's the big nut that we have to get through first.
Okay.
At that point, then it comes back to the congregation. Do they want to move forward? Do they want to pause? Are we going to stop? Everything is dependent. So, and then if is the market going to change? If the developers say yes today or say no today, that might change in 6 months. You know how fast things change in Charlotte as far as market. So we hope if everything moves forward, we can break ground, we believe, in about 3.5, 4 years.
Okay.
But again, until we know
Right.
where the pauses are and where the concerns are, we just can't say, oh, this is the timeline. We can tell you the timeline of the next step.
Gotcha.
But if the next step is not approved or paused for financial reasons or discrepancies in the thought process here, it could be paused for a year before it's picked up again.
Okay.
So does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So that 4-month thing you just said, that's 4 months
That's
from
for
today?
yes, that's 4 months from the signing of the contract, which hopefully will be by the end of this week. I have a call with them tomorrow morning to go through the
Okay, great.
information that we discussed. So hopefully, we can get started next week and have it done in 4 months' time with all of the approvals and the meetings and so forth to move forward.
Awesome. All right, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Bert. Any other questions in the house or online? there's a time delay online, so want to make sure we give folks plenty of time. Matt, I think you've been looking too. Did we miss anything on the chat?
While we're waiting, let's review everything that's going on this week, all right? So
That's a good point.
tomorrow night, 6:30, the young adults are having the Bible study in the cafe for young adults or young at heart, remember? So Zach has that going on. Wednesday night, regular programming and Lenten study going on in the cafe at what time is? At 6:30. Thursday, Thursday, 6:30 here in the worship center. And then Friday is the Tenebrae service at 7 o'clock. Okay? And then Saturday is, we're going to give Pastor D a break that day and Matt a break that day. And then Sunday, get her early to get a parking place, right? It's for Easter Sunday. So at 10:30.
Well, while we're talking about Holy Week, I want to go back to Friday and the awesome Christmas Easter musical. I think it deserves a round of applause. It was so fabulous, so moving. The music was amazing, and the drama team, including you, Ken, I was very inspired and touched by the whole thing. We are very, very fortunate to have such talent within our church. So, folks, if you miss it, you need to watch it online because it's a great way to start your Holy Week.
And Matt, how many folks do we have here Friday night? Right, 200 or more, and I know we are at 250 plus online views. So, and just one thing they say about online views, you usually set a multiplier of 1.4, 1.7, because there's some people have multiple people watching, some single, so you can really conservatively multiply that number times 1.4 to come up with, 300 plus people that have viewed it online. So thank you, Brian Bingham, for live stream and YouTube channel and being able to use that tonight and in all our services.
Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions or any questions in the chat, and I'm not seeing any here in the room. So with that, we will close out our meeting. Again, I appreciate everyone who attended here tonight in person, and I think we had about 50 people on the live stream. So appreciate folks being with us. Thank goodness for technology. It brings us together in ways that wasn't possible in years past. I hope you've learned something tonight about all the amazing activities that are going on within the life of our church. Please keep the Board of Stewards in your prayers. Our big goal is to keep Christ in the center of everything we do. We meet every other week. I just need to give a big shout out to the folks who are serving on the boards of stewards. So please know how much I appreciate you guys. With this, we're going to close. I hope do I have a meeting? Okay. Okay, very good. I'm going to give you the mic so you can repeat all that so I don't mess it up.
All right. So I just wanted to say thank you to Kathy Fitzjeffries, who is monitoring our chat in the worship services, concerts, meetings, and things like that. Kathy, you are a connection from what happens in here to the online world, so thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Kathy, and thank you, Matt. So with that, we are going to be adjourned, and I'm going to ask Pastor D to pray us out.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Michelle, for leading us in this night, and also for all of you for being here. It's been a good time tonight. Actually, on Holy Saturday, Kathy and I will be celebrating the anniversary. We didn't celebrate on the 31st because we was having fun with Matt here at the church. So Ken, that's what's going to happen. So now may God bless all of you and keep you. May God's face shine upon you. May God give you the peace that goes beyond the understanding of this world to keep your hearts and minds ever in love with God, free from worry, free from fear, trusting God with everything. Amen.